Welcome everybody, I am MB30 GOAT, and today we are going to be talking about Martin Brodeur, there's nothing that brings me more joy than talking about goaltenders. Of course, you know, I watched a video on YouTube, that's what sparked this whole discussion for today regarding, it was actually interesting, I think it was mojo.com that put on the top goaltenders list of all time, but they did it in a trivia format. Check it out if you get a chance. It's really funny. It's not that interesting actually. It's really not. I don't think it really did anything for me in the sense of making sense. It really didn't make any sense at all. But what did spark something was that one of the guys on there said, Marty Brodeur is the greatest. They missed the draft pick because in this game, you could draft goalies to your all time list, and someone missed the opportunity to steal Marty Brodeur from the other team, and he said you missed out on picking the greatest goalie of all time or one of the greatest of all time, something to that effect. And the guy goes, yeah, the greatest system goalie of all time. And I get this a lot. I really do. You hear this a lot. For people who don't like either the Devils or Brodeur, or they love their favorite goalie so much that giving Brodeur any credit would disrupt their pick. I don't know what it is, but you hear this all the time, and it's in the form of basically the trap. When they talk about the system, they're talking about trap defense. They're talking about Jacques Lemaire and the New Jersey Devils. And I just, it's such a misconception, and a lot of the things that I really, a lot of the things in hockey that irk me are the common misconceptions that constantly get perpetuated by hockey fans and the media. It's annoying. So I really decided that I'm going to discuss why not only the fact that Brodeur was not a product of the system, but that the New Jersey Devils were a product of Martin Brodeur. Point number one, coaching. Marty Brodeur won the Cup with 3 different coaches. He appeared in the Cup final with 4 different coaches. 3 different coaches were Jacques Lemaire in '95, Larry Robinson in 2000, Pat Burns in 2003. Peter DeBoer, he made it to the Cup final in 2012 under Coach Peter DeBoer, and he made it to the Cup final again under Coach Larry Robinson. Jacques Lemaire is credited with being the neutral zone trap guru. Now, in case there's some of you out there that don't know what the neutral zone trap is, it is a defensive scheme commonly used by a team that is not skilled, like, not gifted in the skill department, and it's a way to make things equal with teams that are skilled. One of the ways, and what I mean by this is, look at '95. The '95 Devils were not a tremendous skilled team, especially offensively. They weren't anything. Remember, in '95, the number one leading scorer for the Devils was Claude Lemieux. That should give you the indication of all you need to know about how skilled they were. But when taking on the skilled '95 Red Wings that consisted of Yzerman and Fedorov and so on and so forth, they were able to sweep them. So the idea of the neutral zone trap is it basically strips down any type of quick speed talent because it clogs up the neutral zone. And how it does that is you have 4 men in the neutral zone and you only send 1 man to forecheck. So guys like Yzerman and Fedorov, who are quick, can't penetrate through the neutral zone, forcing them to dump the puck in. That's the idea of the neutral zone trap, and a lot of people complained about it because it slowed the game down. The whole tug and pull in the neutral zone, not giving a lot of teams that have finesse and speed the ability to just come in and score goals. Jacques Lemaire was one of those people who really put it through. Now the trap started back in the '70s with Montreal. There was a form of the trap where it kind of basically spouted, and that's where Jacques Lemaire got it from, got the idea from. So Jacques Lemaire comes to Montreal as a coach, in 84 and 85. As a coach, he's got Steve Penny in net. Ever heard of him? No. The man only played 91 games in the NHL level, but he was their goalie in Montreal. 2 seasons, 2 playoff appearances, no Stanley Cups, no Vezinas, no All-Star appearances from Steve Penny, no Steve Penny being compared to the greatest of all time, nothing of the sort. Not even close. Steve Penny isn't even, you don't even know who he is. That's my point. Nothing going there. Jacques Lemaire arrives in New Jersey in 93-94. But after Jacques Lemaire leaves in Montreal, right after he leaves, literally the next season, a young kid, Patrick Roy, comes in, and Montreal wins the Stanley Cup. Jacques Demers becomes coach. Lemaire leaves. So when he leaves, they win the cup. Mr. Neutral Zone Trap defense guru leaves, and Montreal wins the cup. They don't win the cup when he's there. Steve Penny is nobody when he's there. So you would think if this Neutral Zone Trap was this unbelievable, magical defensive scheme that everyone makes it out to be, Steve Penny would have had 2 legendary seasons. Not the case. And then Jacques Lemaire makes his way to New Jersey. In 93-94, boom. Who else is in 93-94? Martin Brodeur. He's the starter. That's his first year where he became the starter. And the Devils go all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. Marty Brodeur and push the eventual Stanley Cup winners, the Rangers, into Game 7. And to, I believe it was double or triple overtime. Mateau. All you Ranger fans know about that. He wins the game for him. Marty wins the Calder that year. He's a Vezina candidate that year. Marty, then the very next year, goes on to win the Stanley Cup in 95. Jacques Lemaire is the coach. That's it. Jacques Lemaire wins the cup. Jacques Lemaire would never win a cup again. Jacques Lemaire goes on to coach in Minnesota for 8 seasons. Again, using the famed trap defense. In the 8 seasons, the Minnesota Wild make it to the playoffs 3 times in 8 seasons. You have Manny Fernandez, Dwayne Rollison, and Nicholas Backstrom as the 3 goalies that were coached under Jacques Lemaire's tenure with the Wild. Manny Fernandez, Dwayne Rollison, Nicholas Backstrom have combined for an all-time total of 0 Vezinas. They combined for an all-time total of 0 Stanley Cup appearances or Stanley Cup wins. Manny Fernandez, Dwayne Rollison are not Hall of Famers. They will not be Hall of Famers. Where's this magic neutral zone trap? Why aren't they Vezina winners? Why aren't they Stanley Cup champions? Why haven't even they appeared in 8 seasons under the unbelievable trap defensive guru Jacques Lemaire? Where are all their cup appearances? Where are all their wins? Why aren't they one of the most winningest goalies in those 8 seasons? Let's look at another trap coach, Guy Boucher. You know him as the current coach of the Ottawa Senators. He coached the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he coached them for 2 seasons, and I believe actually, I think it was 3, technically 2.5 seasons, but 3 seasons, let's just say. He had 1 playoff appearance with Tampa Bay. In Tampa Bay, he had Dwayne Rollison. It's funny, Dwayne Rollison loves all these trap defensive coaches. Dwayne Rollison had Jacques Lemaire, he had Guy Boucher, and Dwayne Rollison. So Dwayne Rollison has numerous seasons under Jacques Lemaire, the Mr. Trap defense guru. He goes to Guy Boucher, who's another trap defense guy with Tampa. And guess what? In the 3 seasons Guy Boucher coached, they make it to the playoffs one time. No Stanley Cup appearances, no Stanley Cups, no Vezinas, no spurts of all this winning. Craig Anderson now. And now that's what you're watching right now. Again, no cup appearances, but he's only been coaching there for 1 season. So you have a guy that's coached for 4 seasons, 2 teams, 4 seasons, 2 playoff appearances, and Craig Anderson, he gets the Masterson Award, which we know why. Obviously, he went through some tough times with his wife. She was going through cancer treatments. I don't know her status right now, but and that award, Masterson Award's given for the best outstanding perseverance. It's basically what Craig Anderson exhibited. He had perseverance in the time of trouble in his life, and he still continued to play hockey. He still continued to devote himself to the game while devoting himself to family. That's why you get the Masterson Award in a nutshell. And there you go. He gets that award, but he's not even a Vezina candidate this past year. He wasn't even a Vezina candidate this past year. You know when Craig Anderson was a Vezina candidate? Not under Guy Boucher, not under the trap defense. He was a Vezina candidate under Coach Paul McLean in 2012-2013. So this whole idea that the trap defense produces phenomenal goalies, system goalies as they call it, is a joke. That's number one. Number two, let's discuss the trap and its uses. We saw the goalies that have played at the top of my head. Like I said, I use Jacques Lemaire because Jacques Lemaire was when people think of the Devils and the trap, they think of the 90s Devils, and the 90s Devils was Jacques Lemaire. Larry Robinson, you could use that to an extent, but again, Larry Robinson didn't do anything in L.A. He coached in L.A. and didn't do anything in L.A. Right? He had Byron Dafoe and Stéphane Fiset. They're not legends. They're not unbelievable, and they never won a Vezina. But Larry Robinson coached them, did nothing. He had 1 playoff appearance in 4 seasons. 4 seasons with the Kings. He comes to the Devils, he goes to the Stanley Cup Final twice. What's the common denominator here? Martin Brodeur. Not the coaches, not the trap. Marty. And then finally we look at Pat Burns. And Pat Burns won Jack Adams Awards in Montreal with Patrick Roy, but he never won a cup with Patrick Roy. He won Jack Adams Awards with Felix Potvin with Toronto. But Potvin never won the Vezina or won a cup or went to the cup. And never won a cup with Pat Burns. And then he went to Boston with Byron Dafoe. And Byron Dafoe never went to the cup or won the cup. So, but then he comes to New Jersey. Pat Burns comes to New Jersey and boom, wins the Stanley Cup in 2003. And Marty Brodeur wins a Vezina. So, it's hilarious because the one thing that all these coaches, that everyone gives the coaches credit, the defensive schemes, which is what the coaches are bringing. They're bringing in the trap defense. They're bringing these schemes that everyone hated about New Jersey. And yet, it's Marty who's the common denominator and no one else. Because these coaches have coached elsewhere. They've coached other goalies. They're not producing legendary goalies. There's only one. So let's get into the trap itself. What is the trap? I told you. It's 4 men in the neutral zone, 1 guy forechecking, creates a dump. Why is that important? Of all these teams that were coached in using the trap and had trap defense, there's only one goaltender that knew how to handle the puck. See, what would happen is when you would dump the puck in, it would be okay if you were a forechecking team. What do I mean by forechecking team? Take a look at the 2011 Boston Bruins. They were a great forechecking team. They were a gritty team that would play the Claude Julien style of dump and chase, get into the corner boards, knock the guy or overpower the defenseman in the corner, and make a play in the slot. That's what forechecking teams like the 2011 Bruins did in times when they were dumping and chasing. You couldn't do that with New Jersey. You couldn't do that. And why? Because of Marty Brodeur. See, what would happen is when you dump the puck in, because you had to, because the neutral zone trap forced you to, unlike all the other goalies we discussed using the trap, Marty, with his stick handling ability, would grab the dump puck and play third defenseman. People talk about this all the time. Oh, Marty was like a third defenseman. I don't think people realize what that actually means. When he would dump the puck in, Marty would get the puck and make an outlet pass and start the guys on the rush again. So what he's doing is, number one, he's eliminating an opportunity for one, his defense to get creamed in the corner boards by a power forward. He's eliminating the opportunity for a shot to take place, so guys can't come in and get the puck from his defense, overpower his defenseman, make a pass into the slot area, and potentially score. He's eliminating that, and then he's creating an offensive opportunity because he's sending the puck the other way to his teammates, who are already in the process of peeling out and heading up to the offensive zone. So by doing this, by having this a great ability to stick handle, he's negating a play on his own net, which in turn is limiting shot totals, which everyone also complains about Brodeur. He only saw 20 shots a night. Well, that was a big part of it. No one could get offensive pressure. No one could get offensive zone time. He was disrupting the forecheck. So when you disrupt the forecheck, you disrupt shot totals. You disrupt opportunities. You can't take that away from him. He was the one that was causing it. And he'd send it the other way. And we talk about, well, he had Stevens, and he had Danico, and he had Niedermeyer. Stevens was known as one of the most vicious hitters, but let's think about that for a minute. If a guy's forced to dump the puck in, and Marty's there to get it, and clear it back out, the dump and chase you start to realize this dump and chase isn't working. So what do? You try to force the play. You try to skate through the neutral zone and try to make your own play happen without dumping it in. And guess what you just did? You just completely poked the bear. Because when you try to skate in on your own because the dump and chase isn't working, you're now trying to get through that blue line, and guess who's waiting for you? Big old Scott Stevens with the big hit. Hello, Eric Lindros. Hello, Paul Correa. We've seen those guys get killed because they're forcing plays. And why are they forcing plays? Because the dump and chase doesn't work. Because they have no other choice but to have to force the play because Marty's clearing out the pucks when you dump and chase. So you can't dump and chase, and when you try to come through the middle, you get killed by Scott Stevens. So when we talk about Marty Brodeur, he benefited from Scott. No, Stevens benefited from Brodeur. Because had Brodeur not been completely negating the forecheck, they wouldn't force the play down the middle. They wouldn't force the play into the zone. And therefore, Stevens has open season. He's making Stevens' life easy because he's forcing guys to force the play down the middle, to try to come into the zone single-handedly. And Stevens is there for him. So when we talk about that, it's hilarious because you talk about Brodeur getting getting discredited because of the system, but yet the system doesn't work on any other goalie. You talk about Brodeur getting the credit discredited because of the defense, but yet the defense is benefiting. And let me give you some numbers in case this isn't doing it for you. Take a look at these numbers. Before Brodeur came into New Jersey's lineup, Scott Stevens had a plus 149, which is great, over the course of the 11 seasons before Brodeur. Plus 149 is great. But guess what? When Brodeur arrived, he had 11 seasons with Brodeur, and with Brodeur, he had a plus 244. So he went from a plus minus of plus 149 to a plus minus of plus 244. So 11 seasons with Brodeur, he's got a 244. 11 seasons without Brodeur, he's got a 149. That's night and day. Night and day. You're talking about almost 100 plus more plus minus. And then look at Ken Danico. Pre-Brodeur, Ken Danico had 10 seasons without Brodeur with the Devils. He had a minus 24. Brodeur shows up, and he's got 10 seasons with Brodeur, and he's got a plus 104. Ken Danico, he goes from a minus 24 in 10 seasons without Brodeur to a plus 104 with Brodeur. And then look at even Niedermeyer, who has a much smaller sample size than Stevens and Danico because he only played one season before Brodeur. But if you look at the one season before Brodeur, the 92-93 season, he played 80 games. And in those 80 games, he had a plus 8. Brodeur arrives, he plays 81 games, and he's got a plus 34. So even Stevens, Danico, and even Niedermeyer all have night and day plus minuses. And you want to know something funny? Guess what? When they all left, who was winning Vezina still? Who was an all-star still? Who had his prime in the years 2003 to 2010? Oh, that's right, Marty Brodeur. Marty Brodeur played better without Stevens. He played better, statistically that is, without Danico. He played better without Niedermayer. Without Niedermayer, 3 Vezinas. Without Danico and Stevens, 4 Vezinas. Think about, or 3 Vezinas, I think, actually, because he won a Vezina in 03, and Stevens was still part of the team, and Danico as well, I believe. Yeah, Danico was too. So 3 Vezinas without those guys. 1 Vezina with those guys. And all those guys that get all the credit, all 3 of them combined for 1 Norris Trophy, and that was Scott Niedermayer. So Brodeur is showing that he's excelling and he has his prime without the defenseman, but with the defensemen are playing, with Brodeur, the defensemen are playing better than ever. And same thing with the coaches. When you look at the coaching seasons, Jacques Lemaire never had a better career than when Marty Brodeur was in his goal crease. And Jacques Lemaire, and then you look at Larry Robinson, never had a better career than when Marty Brodeur was in net for him. And if that's not enough, because Jacques Lemaire, didn't coach legends, Pat Burns, who won 3 Jack Adams trophies on 3 different teams, the Bruins, the Leafs, and the Canadiens, and 2 of which was he coached Patrick Waugh, he coached Felix Potvin, and he coached Byron Dafoe. Potvin and Waugh especially, obviously, is one of the greatest of all time, never did better than with Marty Brodeur. So if you think about that and you realize, wow, yeah, Pat Burns had the best career with Brodeur, and Pat Burns had quite the career. Larry Robinson never did anything until he met Brodeur. Jacques Lemaire never did anything until he had Brodeur. Stevens, Danico, Niedermayer were never as good until they had Brodeur. It's the exact opposite. The numbers show it's the exact opposite. That Brodeur has been the only constant. And in 2012, who was Brodeur's best defenseman? Who? Give me the names. Who do you have in 2012? Who do you have? You look at the defensemen, the D-men's names when he brought them to the Stanley Cup final, and you talk about, that's because Brodeur had benefited from the system and all these things that people say. But yet, Marty Brodeur in 2012 brings them all the way to the Cup final with Peter DeBoer as the coach. Okay? And he's got his defensemen. He's got Adam Larson, Mark Fane, Andy Green, Curtis Foster, Anton Volchenkov, Marek Zidlitsky, Matt Taramina, Peter Harold, Henrik Tallinder, and Mark Frazier. That's the defense. That's his defensive core that he took all the way to the Stanley Cup final with Peter DeBoer as coach. So one thing has never changed in New Jersey when it came to success, and that was Brodeur. Stevens and Niedermayer were gone, and the Devils were still successful. They were still first-place teams in 06. They were still first-place teams in 07. They were still first-place teams in 08, 09, 10. They faltered a little bit in 11, and then they were back in 12. There's one constant in New Jersey. Coaches, there's over 10 head coach changes over Brodeur's career. Teams have come and went. Systems have come and went. But the Devils remain successful. And the minute Brodeur stepped down as the starter, they haven't been in the playoffs since. Brodeur's last season as starter was the 2012 season. There he played 59 games, which was low for Brodeur. But then after that, 2012-2013, he only played 29 games. That was it. And I think that was the strike shortened season. So actually 29 games was the full season. My bad. So he was a starter in 2012-2013. I take that back. He started 29 games. He didn't start most. He started most of them. He started 29 out of the I think it was like 40 some odd games, 41 games. But so that was the last time he was a starter. 2013-2014, Schneider took over. And then 2014-2015, Schneider was the goaltender. And Schneider hasn't brought the team to the playoffs as of yet. So you look at this and you see the only constant in New Jersey is Brodeur. When you look at the success of the Devils, he was the change. Take a look, too. 93-94 Devils. That's when Brodeur got his start. They go to the Eastern Conference Finals, and it takes them 7 games to lose. They finish in second place with 106 points that year with Brodeur. They were second in goals for and second in goals against. 92-93, the very season prior to Brodeur arriving, they only get 87 points. They finish in fourth. And they're 14th in goals for and 14th in goals against. And they lose in the first round of the playoffs to the Pittsburgh Penguins 4-1. And this had Danico, this had Stevens, this featured Claude Lemieux, this featured Holy, this featured Randy McKay, Scott Niedermayer. Okay? The only one it didn't feature was Marty Brodeur. And as soon as he arrives, boom, they go to the Eastern Conference Final and they're forced to a Game 7, and finally they lose. And I believe, let me take a look, I believe it was double OT, triple OT, what was it? Double OT in Game 7. So let's stop the madness with this whole Brodeur benefits from the system. The Devils have benefited from Brodeur. Give me a break. It is amazing how much people want to discredit him. It's clear. The numbers show it. The stats, everything shows it. The eye test, when you watch the Devils, they were the Mickey Mouse team, as Wayne Gretzky called them. Brodeur arrives, and now they're serious contenders, and they go from Mickey Mouse organization to, the Devils. Yeah, that's because they're so great. Brodeur benefited from, I see. So they're the Mickey Mouse organization, but when Brodeur arrives, they're now suddenly compared to the Detroit Red Wings of the Eastern Conference. Give me a break. The Devils were never at the caliber of the Red Wings like Chris Osgood had. They were never of the caliber of the Colorado Avalanche that Patrick Waugh played behind. Okay, the Devils were never of that caliber. Maybe in 01 when they were at that caliber with Colorado, that one time in 01. But other than that, they were a grinding team. Look at 00. Look at 2000 when they faced the Dallas Stars. 2.7 goals per game in the playoffs. 2.7? That's so low. When you look at the Stanley Cup teams of that era, that is 2.7 goals per game is hideous. So please, the Devils were never, the Yankees of the NHL, like the Red Wings or the Colorado Avalanche. And the fact that people want to continue to pursue this idea that Brodeur was just in for the ride, you got nothing to back you up. He was the reason the neutral zone trap succeeded. Coaches never succeeded before or after him. Defensemen were never as good until he arrived. And he was better and continued to play better without those defensemen. The defensemen that everyone want to talk about. That's my take on it. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for joining. Talk to you soon.